Sims, let's go.
Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Pastor Cory Rosenke. Yes, he is back, and he's sharing a little bit more with us about the soul. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I'm here again with Pastor Cory Rosenke. How are you doing, sir?
Miracle, and I'm happy to be here again. This is I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm glad to have you back. I know I was saying earlier, I said I don't want to catch up too much because I gotta ask all these questions when you start recording. See how have things been since your last visit and what kind of updates and stuff that we have in store for this conversation. I'm very excited to see. But just in case somebody might be tuning in for the first time and they haven't, been introduced to you, could you just kind of give a little reminder of who you are?
Yes, ma'am. I am a pastor and author currently living in Silicon Valley, California, though I originally hail from Canada. I was born and raised there. I've been here for 7 years. And long story short, I am on a mission to remind people about the needs of their soul. And that's kind of been my passion for the last couple of years. Has really been, we live in a world where everything is obsessed with the biological. We're all obsessed with the biological, the brain and the body, and the brain and the body. And you know what? Very few people are happy. And so what I want to do is remind people you have a soul. You have a soul that is loud. You have a soul that is the core of who you are. And I appreciate having these chats with you and the opportunity just to remind people of who we really are. It's beautiful. It's big. It's wonderful. And when we truly grasp who we are, everything changes.
Amen. I am in total agreement and everything like that. So look, how has the mission been going?
Oh, I've been actually blown away by the response. People have, I'm going to use the word, even though the word might be a little bit extreme, but there is a desperation, I actually believe, on the part of people to hear that this biology is not all there is, that there's more to life. And not only is there more to life, but there's more to hope. There's more to purpose. There's more to meaning than simply biological. And it's important for people to realize this because I know I've talked to you before, but the world hasn't changed. There's it doesn't matter how much money we seem to get, how much fame we seem to have lavished upon us, how many degrees we have on our wall. There's still an emptiness, and the generations that are alive today are waking up to this fact. And I mean, the world is tense. The world is confused. The world's bitter. And this, despite living in the most prosperous time in human history. Right. And I really feel that that's why there's this desperation. People are hungry to be reminded about what they already know. See, that's the thing, Miracle. We all, at some certain level, we already know that we exist beyond biology. We already know that we aren't just some sort of fleshly, machine, but that we actually are much deeper, that we have a soul. And yet, not many of us live like it. And small wonder, right? Because every politician is out there to promise what they're going to do for your brain and your body. Every commercial on TV is promising what they're going to give to your brain and your body. It's, we're constantly bombarded with it. So no wonder we forget, right? And so that's why I want to help remind people. You aren't the number. You aren't the number on your weigh scale. You aren't the reflection in the mirror. You aren't the diploma on your wall. You are so much more.
That's good. That is so good. I was sitting here thinking, I don't know, maybe this is going to lead this conversation, but I was going to, what I feel led to ask in this moment is, well, what does that have to do with Jesus? Right? Because people, again, you just explained in a beautiful way that, I mean, obviously we have all these issues, and then we're trying to fill the void with other things and stuff like that. And then you present to people Jesus, and they're like, what does that have to do with, me and my life? What does that have to do? Well, we can't see him or whatever, all the things. And so I think that's probably like one of the questions that, if they don't say it, which people do say it, but if they don't say it, they're thinking it. They're like, well, what does that have to do with this Jesus you talk about? So
gosh, that's got to be one of the best questions I've ever been asked. And it's exciting, because I'll be honest, like, there's a hunger out there for people to hear about this. I have been speaking, Miracle, to I've been speaking to, maybe 30-40% faith-based audiences. But other than that, the people who have been inviting me on their show to talk have been psychologists and doctors and atheists and witches and mediums and people from all different backgrounds. And so I'm coming on to their shows, really wanting to meet them where they're at. But I love the fact that you asked what this has to do with Jesus, because it has everything to do with Jesus. In fact, when I first got started on talking about the soul and the needs of our soul, I was specifically intending to talk to Christians, or to people who are pursuing Jesus. I totally didn't expect so many other people to be interested, but there is this hunger. So I'll tell you what it has to do with Jesus is, as you know, I've written this book, The Magnetic Heart of God, Understanding the 5 Cravings of Your Soul. And so I'm just going to jump in, give your listeners a sneak peek. The 5 cravings of our soul. These are the cravings. I'm going to get to what this has to do with Jesus, because I just love it. The 5 cravings of our soul, just to quickly recap them, are security. Everybody's looking for security. Physical security, relational security. We need to know that we're physically safe from harm and that our hearts are safe in the hands of those who hold them. We're looking for security. We're looking for identity. Who am I? Why am I? What is my value? Do I have purpose? Right? The human race, we can have everything, but if we have questions about identity, we aren't at peace. We're looking for independence. That's big in our world today. Autonomy of some sort. We have to have something, right? Not only autonomy, but individuality. We need to know that we are unique. And we're looking for significance. That's the 4th craving. We all need to know that we're special. And 5thly, we're looking for innocence. I often say this: innocence stands second to none. Virtually every argument you've ever had happened because you felt that someone subtly or not so subtly insinuated that you were guilty of wrongdoing or wrong thinking. They threatened that craving for innocence. And so we rose up to either flee away from them, because we can't be around someone who makes us feel guilty. Right? Or we fight and we accuse them of even something that we think is worse, more guilty. Right? So we have these cravings. These are the cravings that I believe have propelled all of humanity throughout life and time: security, identity, independence, significance, and innocence. And we've been looking. We have these cravings, and we're looking around the world for satisfaction. And so we look in wealth, can't find it. It's as soon as you get wealth, there's either 2 things happen. You need more, right? Because you realize it hasn't made you feel so significant as you thought it made. So you have 1 million, but now you need 2, and then now you need 10, and on and on, and it goes. You can't find it in wealth. We can't find it in power. We can't find it in fame. We can't find it in sex. We can't find it in all these places that the world is looking. Then let me rephrase that. We can find it momentarily. We can have that experience in a moment, right? But ultimately, these 5 cravings can only be satisfied in one place. And guess where that place is, Miracle? Has to do with Jesus.
That's right.
Right?
I yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, and that's why I called the book The Magnetic Heart of God, because I believe that God placed these cravings inside us for the purpose of drawing us back to him. Right. And then what happens to us, as a pastor, of course, I'm gonna identify that we have a sin nature, that tends to lead us into folly. Right. And so we have these cravings inside of us, but they keep being directed to fallible places. Right. And that is, I believe, why we see the chaos in the world today, the discontentment in the world today. We have more than any generation in the history of the world. And we're not happy. Not only are we not happy, I think our culture has almost reached the point where we're miserable. Right. It doesn't we have a softer bed than we've ever had, right? There's more in the bank, or at least more potential, wealth that we can gain, education than ever. We're so unhappy. Because these cravings were specifically, there's only one place they can be satisfied simultaneously. Right? There's no greater sense of security than found in realizing that God made me and loved me, right? And that he is my shield and my fortress. There's no greater sense of identity than knowing that I was made in his image. I was made to live in connection with him, right? And I often say this, it's only by stepping into the beautiful and protective framework that God has placed around us. There is some times when he says, thou shalt not. It's true. But God has placed this framework around us because only in his framework can we experience the beauty of safe independence. There's no greater sense of significance than realized in the value of his love for me. The God of the universe created and cares for me. And of course, innocence. There's only one place where we can be declared fully innocent, right? And that is at the foot of the cross. And so that's what it has to do with Jesus. He is the fulfillment of all of it. And it can't be money, can't be, different various wealths, not going to be fame, power, sex, all these other usual suspects, I call them. These are the usual places we go to, right? And it's never enough. There's only one person who's enough, right? And that's what it has to do with Jesus.
I mean, well, it's no, surprise that I'm in agreement and whatnot. Obviously I had to go through my journey of understanding to get to the place where I'm like, it all makes sense now, but I guess I bring that up as well because, again, even as I dive deeper and, do my daily studies and all the stuff that, walking this path that God has created for me at this point. And I'm talking about it and I'm sharing it and just sharing the testimony, but I know to those, I guess, from the outside looking in, I just imagine how crazy I might sound to somebody to be like, just trust God. They're like, what?
Right.
If they aren't there yet, it's kind of like, yeah, but I got bills, or yeah, but I got this. You know what I mean? Like, how is it practical or whatever? And it's like, I mean, well, if you practically trust God, then you'll see, it's like if you actually do the thing, then you'll start seeing things just keep happening in your life. And then for me, the more I share the testimony, the more I'm like, hey, okay, yeah, I might have made a few choices, right? I might have been able to been like, okay, I'm not going to go this path, or I'm going to choose to do this thing, or whatever the case is. I might have did that. But outside of that, everything else y'all see is just blessings and miracles and things that God is just opening doors for me. And I know it sounds crazy, I guess, again, to those that either don't believe or are on the fence or whatever the case is. But at the same time, too, you just want to just share, because it's like, if you just really just stop, stop trying to control it, stop trying to take the pen from God and just allow him to write your story and walk that path. I mean, I wouldn't even, I think back and whoop, things is falling. You know what? Oh. Is the enemy mad? I'm good. Hold on. Oh, shit. What is going on? You know what? I don't care. Listen, y'all know this was a set anyway. We talk about all this. I say all the time.
Do your thing.
We in I don't care about this one right here. I tell the people all the time, I'm like, look, I'm in studio A, studio B. I just change the backdrop. That's all I do.
Yeah.
So now y'all know. Matter of fact, I don't mind if you keep this in. Editor, it's fine. I don't even care. Because look, this testimony gonna get told today.
You gotta tell it. You gotta tell it.
You can take off for me real quick, Pastor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, everything you're saying is bang on. I mean, and here's, because I speak to so many people, and because I speak to so many people who aren't at the same place in their faith journey as I am, right? I honestly come to these situations and I say, that's okay. I accept where, because I've been there too, right? I think it's the story of the prodigal son, prodigal daughter, for that matter, if you want, whatever you want to call it, right? That whole story of in this case of the prodigal son, he leaves that place where he belongs. He leaves that place of safety and connectivity, and he goes out and he's going to try doing everything his own way, right? And he tries parties, he tries sex, right? He tries career, he tries all these different things. And then the day comes when he realizes this isn't it. There's nothing here, right? And he comes
Mhm.
home, and what happens? In the story of the prodigal son, his father's arms are wide open, waiting for his son to come home. And I take that same view with people with God, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
preference for people is that sooner, sooner rather than later, they come to realize the emptiness of all these biological pursuits, right? But at the end of the day, when they want to come home, their heavenly Father's waiting for them. And that's the beautiful thing, right? So I accept people where
Yep.
they are in their but I will say this. Um, if you're looking for peace and happiness, um, in worldly things, you won't find it. And I hate to be the person that brings that downer, but just think about this. Elon Musk, the richest man who ever lived, so far as we know, is not a happy person. He's a person who has access to every pleasure possible, every convenience possible on earth. He's not a happy person. Jeff
Mm.
Bezos, same thing. These these aren't happy people, right? You're not gonna find what you're looking for in all these places.
Mm.
It's a proven fact. I heard a quote by Jim Carrey, the Canadian comedian, um, a couple weeks ago. He said this. He said, "I wish for everybody to experience riches and fame so that they can realize that's not the answer." Right?
Mm.
And I think of here's a guy who became rich and famous, right? And he's telling you guys,
Mhm.
"Listen, I have attained what all of you have spent your life digging and clawing and lying and manipulated trying to get. And
Mm.
I want to tell you now, it's not here. This isn't where you're going to find this happiness and peace. It's not here." Right? And it's a tough message for
Mm.
us to hear because our parents were looking for it there. Our grandparents were looking for it there. Our great-grandparents were looking for it there. It takes it's to a certain degree, it is a radical change to pause and realize, I'm not gonna find it if I keep looking in the same old places. You always do what you always done, you always get what you always got, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
yet, I have met happy people who lived in poverty. Right? I have met happy people who did not have all of these didn't have Netflix and Hulu and access to all these things. In fact, most happy people I know don't have those things, right? Um, and so, yeah, but wherever people are at in their journey, right? I guess my hope for you is I guess I would say this first. Only when you know what you're looking for can you actually begin looking in the right direction. And that's why whether
Mm.
people wanna hear, things from a Christian context or not, I oftentimes talk to people who don't wanna hear a faith-based context, they wanna hear a philosophical one, and I'm fine with that, because I'm fully convinced that if I can help people understand what it is you're looking for security, identity, independence, significance, and innocence. That's what you're looking for. And when you know
Mhm.
what you're looking for, you can start looking in the right direction. And I know what people will do. We all do it. I've been there. I mean, I can tell you you're not gonna find it in money. But people oftentimes they gotta try. But when it doesn't happen, just know your heavenly Father is waiting for you to come back, right? When you think that
Yeah.
I'm gonna find it if I could just get this career that I want. I'm gonna experience this. I'm telling you,
Mhm.
when you get there and it doesn't happen and it's not enough, it's okay. We've all been there. Your heavenly Father is waiting for you to come back, and you're welcome to.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's so good because honestly, is what you said it repeatedly, but at the same time, I just resonated with so much because I have gone through the journey. I mean, I may not have got like the highest echelon of being an entertainer or whatever, right? But back when I call it a cultivation period, that time when I was single and I was like,
Mhm.
where's my husband doing all that, and pretty much God was just putting that mirror in front of me to show me, hey, one, you're not ready for the things you think you want, and then two, here's some things you need to change and stuff like that. Um, I guess I'm saying that I've been there in regards to trying to fill the void with other things, and I see that clearly now. Now, then at the time, I didn't know that's what I was trying to do. I just thought I was just, oh, I'm just trying to build my resume, or I'm just trying to, get to another level in my career, or whatever the case may be. But I can definitely see it now because again, even these days, I'm not necessarily doing again what people might think is successful, right? Or what people might think is, again, reaching the highest level or whatever. But my whole thing is I have so much peace, joy. I'm thankful, you know what I'm saying, to be in this place. Even just having these conversations and stuff like that has been like the most fulfilling things that I've probably ever done. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, being a wife and mom, sure, all that's great as well, but I still enjoy just getting up in the morning and doing the juice and studying God's word, and the fact that he gives me something every day to say, you know what I'm saying, that still blows my mind. It's been 3 years now, you know, all of that. I mean, year 4, 2020. So whenever, you know what I'm saying? Y'all do the math for how long it's been. April 1st, 2020, ironically, right? You know, and so all of that stuff, I've just been so fulfilled where I'm like, I'm just excited to see what else God's gonna do. I'm like, well, what we doing next? Like, this is great. Like, and it's just been blowing my mind the more it goes. And so, I mean, he's sitting here telling you, I'm sitting here telling you, and you know, look, Solomon told us back in the day, you know, he wrote it all down and said, what, this is all vanity. And it's so interesting because as you were talking about that earlier, I was thinking about Solomon, and then you brought up Elon Musk, which I guess is a Solomon of today, right? You know, is he going to come to the conclusion and realize that, you know, it's all vanity or whatever? I guess we don't know. We'll pray, we'll see. But yeah, it's just interesting. Again, like, you know, there's some of us that got to go through the journey and then realize it. But I think the thing is, and then, yeah, like you said earlier, it's a beautiful thing to know that God is still there regardless, right? But the thing is, the other thing that I think we don't talk about and that people also forget is that we don't know, right? The day, the hour, the time. Like, you don't know if you have the time to lollygag, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know if taking that risk and taking that chance again will be it, you know? And so that's the thing too, when like when I'm talking to people and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, I'm thankful for my journey. You know, I think about, again, Miracle 11 years ago, you know, I'm thankful that I made the decisions that I made then to get me to where I am today, and I wouldn't change anything, you know? And I didn't understand it back then. I'm like, Lord, why am I going through this? Like, why is this like this and stuff like that? But here I am sharing the testimony almost every day today. But sometimes I do wonder, like, well, where would I have been if I'd just got this stuff back then, you know? Like, or what if I didn't make it, right, to get to where I am now mentally and everything? Like, what if something crazy had happened, or putting myself in dangerous situations that did go left, and, you know, all the different stuff. So it's just one of those things where you're like, I mean, yeah, this time
you use the right word. Yeah, you used the word. You called it a risk. You know, waiting is a risk. And I will say this again too, because I'm a truth guy. I like to pursue what is real, what is reality. And I started off, as I said, wanting to write this, wanting to communicate to people of faith, because the truth of the matter is there are a whole lot of people who call themselves Christians who are just as miserable as everybody else. Right. And, you know, they may hear what I'm saying right now and they'll be like nodding their head. But the truth of the matter is they're miserable in their marriages. They're miserable in their careers. They feel frazzled and tired. You know, that's, and I would say to that, basically what we've done, and I can say this personally, because this is where I found myself. I am telling you, you are people, we are craving security, identity, independence, significance, and innocence. I am also saying that at the end of the day, these cravings were placed inside of us for the purpose of drawing us back towards God, because only in him can they be satisfied. However, as a Christian, how many years of my life did I spend saying, God, you are all I need, right? Or, you know, you're great and wonderful. And yet I'm just as miserable as everyone else, because rather than turning to God and saying, God, you are my source of security. God, you are my source of all these cravings. I turn to God instead and I say, God, now I need you to get me that same security that everyone else is looking for. God, give me financial security, right? God, I know my identity is found in you, but I also want to have the identity of being a world famous actress. Give me that identity. And we start looking to God as a sugar daddy to give us all these things that aren't making anybody else happy, but somehow we expect them to make us happy. The church is full of people like that. I've been that person. I'm still tempted at times to go that direction. So I'm speaking to Christians just as much as I'm speaking to non-Christians, saying, hey, you guys, if you truly want to have security, you know what? You can live in a dangerous neighborhood with a front door with a lock that doesn't work, and you can still be at peace when you know that God loves you, that God has a plan, that God holds your heart in his hand, and that he will never leave you or forsake you. You don't have to live in a posh neighborhood with a solid front door to feel peace. You can feel it right where you are. And I'll tell you, that's a radical thing that seems totally foreign to the rest of the world, right? But you can have it. I have had that. I went through a season a while ago of extreme poverty. I got to tell you, I was at more peace than I've ever been. And you know why? Because I was in a specific situation where I couldn't save myself, and I knew nobody else was going to save me. All I could do was look to God and say, God, you know what I need. I trust you. I was at more peace than ever. And I got to tell you now that I'm not quite at that place anymore, peace is a little harder to come by, because now all of a sudden I'm looking at my bank account and I'm looking to the next, show or book or job to try to fill those things. I got to constantly remind myself, no, God is the solution to these things. And when you know that, I mean, that's why you look at someone like, I mean, perhaps the legend has grown beyond what is real, but we think of Mother Teresa as an example, right? Mother Teresa, at least from what we know, was this woman who, from a worldly sense, had nothing, right? And yet just lived a life of love and peace and kindness, right? Why? She had her God, and that's all she needed.
And I mean, I guess the thing is, I'm sitting here thinking now that you said that, it's like, I'm not saying that God's out here testing us like Job all the time, but I mean, hey, maybe some of us, he does have to like take us through a journey to see, like, am I truly what did you say I am to you? And then also what made me think about as well is and like they say, the scariest verse in the Bible, like, not everybody that say Lord, Lord is gonna enter heaven. And it's like, oh God, and I know every now and then I'm like, well, Lord, I hope and pray that, I am, walking in your will and way. I feel like I am, right? I feel like I'm finally in a place of peace and purpose and all this different type of stuff. But, again, it won't mean anything if, because again, we can all just say things, and then again, our heart and how we handle things and all of that, I guess, tells the true story. So
yeah. Well, and that's so I would say that too. I'm just going to imagine that there's two different types of audiences listening. There's probably more than two, and people can fit in this anywhere on the spectrum. I would speak to the people who are like, nope, not interested in the God thing. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for not trying to force me into it. I would say, okay, all I want to tell you is what you're looking for is security, identity, independence, significance, and innocence. And when you don't find it in the world, you don't have to come to me. I can't help you. Don't come to Miracle. She can't help you. Go to God. He will be your all in all, right? And then I would speak another message to those in the church. And I would say, there are a whole lot of unhappy people in the church, because I think that we did, and I hate to use, it's kind of inflammatory language and I don't want to use it too much, but I'm going to dare to use it again, because I really think it pictures it. We tend to look at God as that sugar daddy, right? And rather than saying, my security is in you, Lord, we say, Lord, give me security in that. And that is why the church is full of unhappy people, compromised people, right? Because we aren't looking to God as we should, right? God can bring you peace in the midst of any circumstance. It's absolutely amazing, right? You don't have to have all these other things. They are not prerequisites to peace. God is the prerequisite to peace. And so I would really encourage your believing audience to self-evaluate and say, hey, how do I view God? Right? Do I look at him as, the source of my identity, as made in his image? By the way, to be made in his image means we were designed to live in connection with him. And again, the reason why the world has been in chaos for thousands of years is because we stopped living in connection with him. Right? That's That's the very thing that happened in the Garden of Eden, right?
Mhm.
The connection was severed, and everything went to pot, right? But there's a day, of course, as believers, that we know all things will be made new. But so where are you at? I would say to your believing people, have you been viewing God as that sugar daddy? And if you have been, here's the great thing: God did not make this complicated. Acknowledge it, confess it, right? Try a
Mhm.
new way.
There you go. Man, Lissy done came to drop the mic already. Goodness gracious. But I mean, yeah, that's good. And I think, again, we all should just, I guess, like they say, die to self daily, right? Do that check every day, and I think that'll at least get us on the path to righteousness, as they say. Like, again, none of us are going to be perfect. None of us are Christ. That's why he had to come and do what he did,
Yeah.
But we all can be a little better, right? And we all can, and I guess that's the beautiful thing about it too, is that it is for everybody. I feel like I'm always kind of trying to reiterate that, because again, people think like, oh, it's just this group or that group, or oh, it's and it's like all these things are like calling for us to separate and isolate. I was talking about this morning on the juice. But yeah, it was like, kind of keeping us separate when we need to be coming together, fellowshipping with one another, having these type of conversations, even just the not even, I guess, Sunday fellowship, but just the gathering together, like it says, like, and so we should think like, well, why, is this calling for, this idea of, oh, I don't need the church, you know what I'm saying? I could just be, a believer or a Christian without that, or whatever the case is. And so it's like all this stuff that's keeping us isolated. And then, now we have all this time to think, right? We have all this time to, I guess, for the enemy to use it as his playground and things of that nature. And so, I mean, yeah, so this message of redemption, this message of being welcoming and all this stuff is for everybody, each and every one of us, no matter what you look like, where you're from, what you might have practiced, and also, your language, any of that type of stuff. I mean, I don't know. What do you feel about this idea of separation and whatnot? Like, are you seeing that as well? And do you have anything that you can kind of share in regards to that, like to let everybody know, hey, this is for you and everybody, not just us over here,
Yeah. Well, I think that's why the message is resonating with so many people, because ultimately I'm not approaching faith from an Easter morning, you're a sinner and you need a savior perspective, right? Though I believe that is very much true, right? When we think of what Jesus did for us, well, what Jesus did was Jesus, made a way through his sacrifice for us to enter into the relationship with God we were intended to have from the beginning, right? But I'm not sharing, my message is not an Easter morning message. It's a book of Genesis chapter message, first book in the Bible, right? Where it says God created mankind, men and women, in his image. We were designed. It's the way you have been built. You are designed to live in connection with your maker, right? To me, that's where I want to start the conversation, right? And when I have a lot of conversation with people, I'm like, for the moment, I don't have to talk about who this maker is, right? I do want to, I would like to get there eventually to try to help people, because there's a lot of trial and error that has taken place there. But ultimately, you are created to live in connection with God. And every moment that you are not living in connected with your maker, right? It's empty, or there's that momentary hope, maybe in the pursuit of something for a moment, right? But ultimately, when you get it, you realize, like as Jim Carrey said, there's nothing here. The answer is not in this riches and fame. It's not here. It's not here. I mean, and we have thousands of years of world history proving that. And so you're absolutely right. We are all created in the image of God. And that's the beauty of talking about the soul, because if every time we're focused on the biological, we divide ourselves. We divide ourselves by race. We divide ourselves by language. We divide ourselves by education or economic background. Divide, right? I grew up dirt poor in the mountains, right? And felt so divided and separated from all the people around me who lived a much more privileged life than I did. But when we look at the biological, there's a million things that can separate us. But when we realize that more than biological creations, we are non-biological creations, we have souls within us, that is the great unifier, right? Because Miracle, you're a soul, I'm a soul. We're looking for the same thing. Ultimately, our hope is in the same place. And boy, there's nothing that unifies us like that awareness.
Yeah. And if you need proof about that, I mean, again, we know that when people pass away, their bodies are still here. So that means, you know, what he's talking about is valid. Like,
well,
you know,
and that's I often get that question, Miracle, where it's people like, what evidence do you have of this? You know, what evidence do you have of the soul, right? And I may have talked about this to you before, but I'll just kind of, just to briefly recap. First off, you're your own best evidence. Every human being intuitively knows we exist beyond biology. Like, it is buried deep within us. We have cravings and desires that are eternal in nature, not just biological in nature, that are totally separate from the chimpanzee or the eagle or whatever else. We have this inner knowledge that we have souls. But bigger than that, here's this, and I always say this because this is as scientific as you can get. Every culture in world history, you know, has reached the same conclusion. This is the fascinating thing. I call it the evidence of unanimous and uncoerced conclusion. Every culture by themselves, without interruption by anyone else, came to the same conclusion that we exist beyond biology. When the Europeans, who believed in a soul, by the way, landed at Plymouth Rock, they came to the Native Americans who already believed in a soul. They brought a religion, but they didn't bring the awareness of the soul. The Native Americans knew that they had souls. They had their own way to explain it, their own way to describe it, but they knew they existed beyond biology, right? When the Romans, they knew they existed beyond biology. They invaded Brittany way back in the day, landed their legions north of the White Cliffs of Dover. They came to Brittany to a people who already knew they had a soul. Now, again, Rome brought a religion, but they did not bring awareness to the soul. The people in Brittany already knew they had souls. The whole continent of Africa, we think of all the different cultures, rich cultures in that continent alone. Each one, I mean, people spread religion, but each culture already knew that they had a soul. In fact, when you think of all the religions around the world, I often say those religions sprang up as different cultures tried to explain what they already knew about themselves, right? The awareness of the soul it's as scientific a fact as you can get. And if I've used this story before, forgive me, but I'll just say it one more time. If my son comes into the room and says, "Dad, did you hear that loud bang?" and I didn't hear it, I'm like, "No, son, I didn't hear it." And I'm wondering if he heard things, right? And then my wife comes in from the garden and says, "Hannah, did you hear that loud bang?" And I'm like, "Oh, two different people said there was a loud bang. They weren't together. Maybe there was a bang." And then the neighbor phones and says, "Hey, did you guys hear that bang?" I'm like, "Okay, I did not hear the bang, but clearly there was a bang because everybody else heard it and they were not in cahoots with each other," right? You take that and you multiply it thousands of times and you say every culture in the history of the world came to the same conclusion independently. That's as scientific a fact as you can get. You are a soul, more than a brain or a body. You are a soul. That is a fact. And that is a truth that we need to start living in connection with if we are ever going to attain that hope and peace that we're actually hoping to attain.
Well, I mean, I know I can sit here and talk to you, man. I want to, redo the last interview because I mean, I was like, man, because it seems like you've just come to this just beautiful conclusion that you're able to, you put in your book and things like that. And I would love to just, I don't know, just I guess pick your brain about that even more. But I know we talked all about like why you started it, the inspiration and all that last time. So I won't do it again. But but yeah, I just want to remind the people, well, one, where they can find you and your book and everything like that. And then what's next? Like, what, are you, I know you're already kind of getting out there and sharing the message or whatnot, but is there any expansion to this message? Like, is there any extra things going on? Like, I mean, it's just so exciting. What's going on with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the best place for people to get in contact with me, and they can actually either buy the book or learn more about me, or even contact me directly through my website, CoryRosenke.com. That's the essential location. And of course, if people were just interested in learning more about their soul in the book, if you just Googled The Magnetic Heart of God, it'll show up. It'll come up at a store near you. But as far as what's been going on, where you can see me next is, there have been things happening. I've been in awe to a certain degree of the response. And so the next thing is I have several purposes going forward, but one of them is I'm going to start traveling to a lot of churches over the next year. 2024 is going to be a big year because I want to remind Christians of this, right? Hey, God designed you to live in connection with him. Are you? Right? And then remind them how they can. Second off, I will be coming to a university campus near you, bringing this message of the soul, or as I often call it now, our non-biological selves, because that seems to be language that more people can accept, right? I know, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
But trying to meet people where they're at, right? Because people are starving to hear about it, right? Even in the universities, they've gone to these schools with the promise, oh, we're going to give you this great education. It's going to get you the career you want. You're going to live a blissful life after this. No, you're not, because you're so much more than a brain or a body. You're a soul. And so, I travel. I intend to travel to, like I said, churches, to universities, and then just to continue talking to people like you. Like I said, I'm amazed at the people I talk to. I was speaking to an atheist in London, England, the other day, and just the opportunity to remind people, hey, there's so much more. Again, and help people to meet people where they're at, right, and help them begin the journey from there.
Well, that is awesome. Look, I pray all the safe travels and whatnot while you're doing this ministry, sharing in the churches and in universities that definitely need you. I know this. Do you follow Frank Turek with the climate? Because I know he goes to universities. I feel like there's a lot of people actually going to universities and speaking, which I think is great. Because again, we hear on the flip side and a whole other information that So at least balance it out. That's my thing. At least as long as everything can stay balanced, we can share our points, they can share their points. Let people choose. That's what God did. Let us all be able to do that. That's how I say. So I think that's great that you're going to even things out a little bit. And man, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear these updates. I'm excited to hear more from you in regards to this conversation about the soul. And I hope that everybody listening today have been encouraged and inspired, and reach out to this gentleman. Is there anything else you want to share with us before you go?
I just want to drive that nail home. So if I could just hit that with my hammer one more time. You are not the reflection in your mirror. You are not the number on your weigh scale. You are not the diploma on your wall. I'm going to get a little bit risky here. You are not the language you speak. You are not the color of your skin. You are not the country you're born into. More than any of that, you are a soul created to live in connection with God. I just pray people would let that sink in, whether they're listening right now, they're driving in their car, or they're at home with their kids, or they're, ready to go into the next classroom. I just pray people would be awakened to this realization. You are a soul created in the image of God, and it is filled with endless hope and possibility. I just want people to remember that.
Well, I sure hope they do too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Pastor Cory for visiting us tonight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and grab his book, The Magnetic Heart of God. Have a good night.